Running is part of my life. From as young as I was 6 years, I used to run when parents sent me to fetch anything. And that made me to be a sportsman. I started running even when I was at primary starting school. And then I decided that as long as I live, running will be part of my life. I started with 10 kilometers and then I realized that it's too short. I shooted straight to marathon. Then marathon was giving me the challenge that I need. Preparing for it every day and every week, eating habits and lifestyle became part of my running attitude. And after running a couple of marathons, I then went to try ultra marathon. So I took ultra marathon of 56K, and then I took a challenge of a marathon of 89 kilometers. But on Thursday, June 2013, as I was running in training, I ran short of breath and I slowed down. Suddenly, I could not even move. I had to crawl. And as I crawl, I realized that there is something with the breath. I had no energy in my body. The next day, I went to see a doctor. And the doctor said it must be a problem of organs. And he wouldn't speculate. He rather refer me to hospital for the hospital to check further what is the situation.
Patients will come through. We see close to 40 patients a day in terms of the service as a whole. And patients with new cardiac disorders come and see somebody in the team, and they are evaluated to find out what exactly is wrong with them and how it is that we as cardiologists can help them.
I met Mr. Kalane in 2014 when he came to my clinic, and I was fortunate to follow him through the journey over the next 2 years up until the time in which he was transplanted. And it was a real privilege to be a part of that journey. When I first met him, he was quite stable on treatment, but he had a very dilated heart with really poor function. His heart was only functioning at 15%.
Over a series of weeks to months of investigation and treatment, there is often a subset of patients of the original number of patients that present with heart failure for whom our simple interventions like pills are unable to help.
So in around about November 2015, Mr. Kalane and I had to have a very difficult conversation about the next step, because things were decompensating, and it took a long time for us to get to the point where he was ready to stop working, and where I had to really convince him that it was okay to stop working.
As regards the transplant itself, it's a fairly complicated process in terms of the logistics. A patient is firstly assessed and found to have no other possible means of helping him with his or her end-stage heart failure.
We're had you on good medical therapy, on good tablets for a long time, and we're really not winning. And I think that we really need to consider transplantation.
For the first time when we got, I think Dr. KRAUS had told him that, yeah, this is happening. We were like, okay, cool. And he told me immediately, we were all excited. There was that bit of excitement.
It affected both of us a lot, but he didn't show it that much to me as he showed it to Lebo. How he felt. I think because I'm his son, he needed to be strong for me in the process.
Psychologically, it becomes important to look at the person's, let's say, psychological state. We look at histories, any history of suicide, any history in terms of struggling. Because when the patient gets told that you've got a heart problem and that you need heart transplant, this is a shock to the patient. So the journey becomes now pre and post transplant. Once he's been identified as a potential patient, then that's when the social worker comes to do the assessment. His assessment was positive due to the fact that he was a very sports-orientated person.
As a transplant coordinator, I'm a procurement coordinator, which means that I'm involved in requesting organ donation from families.
And when we speak to families, we speak to them at a very tough time in their lives when they've just lost a loved one. And many of them are unsure of how organ donation works, and thus they decline organ donation based on the fact that they don't know a lot about it.
And if they do consent to organ donation, it is then my role to make sure that the donor remains stable in the ICU or the trauma unit where the patient has been referred from, to send off all the necessary blood tests to screen for infections and to do tissue typing and the follow-up of blood grouping and so on.
There's not enough space on the list for everybody to be put on, whether it's the cardiac list, whether it's the liver list, whether it's the kidney list. There's so many people waiting for organ transplantation that there are only few spots available. So there's a big demand for organs, and there's very little supply that we do get. So the demand exceeds the supply, so we're in desperate need of organs.
When we get a referral of a potential donor in the Eastern Cape, it is one of our colleagues who would have spoken to the family there, would have got consent, explained the process, and once she has all the blood results, then she would phone us and say, I have a donor, describe the donor clinically, give us the blood results, and then ask us, do we have a matching heart recipient, liver recipient, etc. If we do have, then the teams will get themselves ready. It's my job as the coordinator to then set up a flight for the doctors to get up there. It might be a commercial flight, as in the airways that fly up and down the coast. What is preferential when it comes to a heart and a liver procurement is if we can get the services of a private jet company, and we do have some of those who very kindly donate us flights each year.
So I received a call from the transplant coordinators that there was a donor heart available in the Eastern Cape for a multi-organ donation. And we shortly left Cape Town International Airport on a commercial flight to the Eastern Cape. The procedure itself requires giving a solution to the heart to relax the heart or prevent the heart from beating. And this allows us to transport the heart over long distances for 4 to 5 hours.
Part of the whole process of the aircraft basically being dispatched to go and do the organ collection is, there's a whole team of people involved, right from our management down to the technical staff making sure the aircraft's serviceable, to the hangar staff ensuring the aircraft's outside, refueled and ready to go, to even en route on the way back like we had the other day, air traffic controllers facilitating direct routings to Cape Town, getting all the other traffic out of our way, and high speeds towards the airport. And they also, I think, quite cognizant of the importance or the need for us to get in quickly.
We normally get a short notice call out that they found a suitable donor somewhere. They let us know where it is. There was a bit of rush planning from our side to run around. Then the doctors themselves who are involved in the process come on board.
My name is GWYNETH Stevens. I'm the operational manager of Ward D24, the cardiothoracic ward. One of our main functions of this ward is to receive patients prior to going for heart transplants. So they get admitted into the ward, they get introduced to all the nursing staff here, to all the medical staff here. They even get introduced to the surroundings so that they know exactly what the ward is going to look like, where they're going to be, where they go for their heart transplants.
Waiting on it was very hard because every day you will see him that the man is suffering. He couldn't do the things that he used to do.
We'll be home again.
And of course, it's a whole lot of excitement for everybody when we find out there's a donor. It's like one of the best pieces of news for the day. People are excited the minute the message comes through. There's a donor now, this person can go for the heart transplant. Everybody is excited.
Again, we'll be home again. Oh, darling, we'll be home again. Oh, darling, we'll be home again. Oh, darling, we'll be home.
Although getting a heart transplantation is incredibly, it's an incredible gift, it is not a straightforward journey. All right, it is potentially fraught with its own difficulties, and patients and their support system and families need to be fully aware of the implications of taking this, what is a big step.
Arteries. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Using a heart that's been in a cold state for more than 5 hours or up to 5 hours is always of concern for the surgeon. And particularly in a heart transplant patient, where you walk the journey with the patient in the lead up to their transplantation. There's a closer bond that you create with your patient, and knowing that you're putting a heart in with a slightly higher risk always creates a lot of tension for the surgeon.
The heart transplant itself is actually performed very much the same way as Professor Barnard performed it 50 years ago. It's basically a relatively simplistic operations as open heart surgery operations go. There are basically only 4 anastomoses, or what we call a suturing of the various chambers together. For those in the medical field, the left atrium gets of the recipient and donor gets anastomosed or sutured together, then the right atrium, the pulmonary artery and the aorta.
This procedure was performed by John Hewitson, and I assisted him in the implant of the heart. And of note is that John Hewitson's father, Rodney Hewitson, was also involved in the first heart transplant 50 years ago. It's quite fitting that we celebrate this again at this time.
We'll be home again. Oh, darling, we'll be home again.
We normally receive the transplant patients post-surgery. The patient actually comes to the ICU direct from surgery without going via our recovery room. Our first dose of our immunosuppressive drugs, because these patients will need immunosuppressive drugs for the rest of their lives, we will actually commence it the first 4 hours, that is in the form of Simulec. They will get their first dose of Simulec, and then their first dose of their immunosuppressive drugs will be then administered to the patient the following morning after we've done our levels.
Once the patient is accepted on our transplant list, they become part of a family.
I think my favorite moment in this journey was going to see Mr. Kalane a day or two after he'd had his transplantation, and I woke him up. He was in the ICU, and he looked at me and he smiled at me, and the first thing that I remember him saying to me was that his skin was different. And it was such a wonderful moment because it was so instantaneous. He went from being grey, sometimes purple, to really being pink and having warm hands, and it was just such a wonderful moment to see this smiling man in a bed and to know that I'd played a part in that journey.
I'm awake. I was not sure whether the operation is done. I was not sure whether I will be healthy, but the fact that I was feeling no pain, there was that excitement that maybe the operation is done, maybe they didn't do it, but I am still okay. But healthy-wise, I was breathing as normal as anybody else without any machine assistance. And I was teary.
I feel that is really something that I enjoy in the ICU, just to see that patient and the way they appreciate for the second chance that they have in life.
If he did not get a donor at the time that he did, of which I think it was perfect timing, he was not going to make it to the next year. The situation was that dire, his condition was that extreme.
Heart is something that you cannot grow out of a tree or take it from somewhere. You can take it from somebody, but not from somewhere. To them, I say, thank you very much. Because today you wouldn't see us grow up, you wouldn't see us be what he mentored us to be.
Now with a new lease of life, it means that I can enjoy my children. I can do the activities that I could not do. I can even return to work to support my family both emotionally, financially, and socially. Basically, my future is contributing to the development of South Africa society in all aspects. Back to running as I've already started.